My name is Khadija Habout. I'm representing Airport Coordination Netherlands together with my colleague Alla Lenoir. I will also give a short introduction of the rest of the team. We're with the 8 of us. I will tell you something about the slot coordination part. My colleague Alla will inform you about slot monitoring, which is his responsibility. So I will give you a short introduction of the team, and inform you of the slot allocation process, and also point out important information on our website. And then my colleague Alla will inform you about monitoring and the slot enforcement code. And I would like to try to keep it as short as possible to make sure that you have sufficient time to ask questions. Okay. So this is our team. It's a team of 8. Managing Director Hugo Thomassen. And we have a manager slot coordination and monitoring, which is Bart van der Elst. I think most of you know him. He's more in a supervisor role and having a look with us to the slot coordination part. So if we have to make a decision, we never do it on our own. We do it we call it 4 oog principe. It's with 4 eyes to avoid making a decision which is solely made by one person. And myself, I'm responsible for the coordination of Schiphol. And my colleague Gijs Hartsma is responsible for Eindhoven and Rotterdam Airport. Throughout the season, you might have seen that Gijs is taking over the coordination part because Schiphol Airport is a huge amount of work. So getting closer to the season, I transfer the work to my colleague Gijs in order for me to focus on the SHL process and SAL process. Danny Fairwear is responsible for the policy, his advisor policy, and Özhan is our legal advisor. My colleague Alla, responsible for slot monitoring, and our management assistant, Stephanie Ebbe. So the most important thing in our work is the calendar of IATA activities, which is leading us throughout the whole process. What I would like to do in the next slides is to focus on the most important actions that need to be taken by the airlines. Of course, we have also responsibility for the coordinator, which is also described in our working procedures on our website, but I'm not focusing on that part, but on the part which is your responsibility. SHL, Slot Historic List, that's actually the start of the whole process. It's a document, it's a list of the slots that you hold. So that means that if you have historical slots, these will be included in this document. It's very important to review the SHL and to acknowledge it to the coordinator. If it's not acknowledged, we will send you a reminder to acknowledge it anyway, but it's actually the responsibility of the airline to make sure that all the historical slots are in the SHL. If you disagree with the outcome of the coordinator of the SHL, this needs to be we need to be informed as soon as possible, but not later than the agreed historic deadline. For the current season, for winter 22, the deadline is tomorrow at 23:59 UTC. If we do not have an agreement on the outcome of the disagreement, this can be escalated to the coordination committee. So these are the most important things for the airline. Then the initial submission. After the agreed historic deadline, we have the initial submission phase. The standard IATA format is required. It's very important to investigate which action code can be used. For example, we have the historical action codes, which are F, CL, CI, CR. But then, if you do not have historical slots, you have the possibility to request slots with V, B, Y, or N. V and B have a higher priority. It's a new entrant year-round, but it's only 50% of the slot pool that can be coordinated to or allocated to V and B, because that's the limitation in the European regulation. Then you have year-round, which is part of the remaining 50%, together with the new requests. But year-round has a higher priority over new. So that means if we have year-round, these will be allocated before being able to allocate to new requests. Also important is in the initial submission, we have seen it many times, there has been an exchange of arrival and departure, or a change to another day of the week. But in order to respect the priorities and to be able to give a close time, because we cannot allocate, for example, if we have a request from day 2 going to day 3 to a different time, it's difficult for us to decide what is preferred by the airline. So we try to keep it on the day of operations, so keep it on the same day, and therefore it's not allowed to change slots to a different day of the week or exchange arrival departure. This is possible after the SAL has been issued to the airlines. You have the possibility to do the exchange. Also important, if the initial submission must be received before the deadline. If we receive it afterwards, it will be treated as post-SAL. So that means it will not be included in the SAL, and a lower priority will be given. We also send a reminder to airlines who do not send an initial submission. So we also take an extra step to contact the airlines and inform them that we did not receive anything yet. And I think an important part, which is not been done most frequently, is you have the possibility to request us to provide you with a total number of requested slots. So for example, please provide us with the total historical slots. Did we request all the historic slots? What is the additional part that we requested? Just to make sure that you have requested all historical slots. No, it's not working. Yeah. Then the next part is the SAL, the slot allocation list. So if you did not receive, after the deadline, if you did not receive an SAL, you will need to contact the coordinator. That's the responsibility of the airline. And in case of offers, for example, the requested time is not available and you have a closer offer, it's only required to accept it with an A if you accept the time. However, if you do not, if you wish to remain on the wait list for the requested time in the initial submission, it is not required to request or to send the action code P. P means pending, but it's already included by the coordinator in pending. As I also mentioned furthermore, is if you have requested slots and you did not receive them, these will be automatically placed on the wait list. So there's no action needed from the airline in case of a U. After receiving the SAL, you immediately have the possibility to request a change, or as I mentioned before, change arrival for departure or a different day of the week. So that's also important. We also see that airlines try to wait until the conference, but you do have the possibility to do that immediately. Also very important is keep the waitlist updated. What we see often is that we offer a time which was preferred in the initial submission, but when it becomes available and we offer it, we get a Z, so a decline of the offer, which is quite some work for us as a coordinator, because we try to offer as soon as possible the requested time. So that's a responsibility that we really want to point out, because it happens very often that the waitlist is not up to date. Also, getting closer to the season, if you know that it's too late to start operations, please make sure the waitlist is updated. Then I have a small part about waitlist. Again, maintain the record of all outstanding requests. Make sure that everything is up to date. Review it regularly, but also what we have seen quite some seasons is Article 10.15.3 in the WASG is requesting an airline to confirm that the outstanding request is still valid at the slot return baseline. ACNL, we also send an email to all airlines requesting to confirm, and if not confirmed, the waitlist will be removed. This happened to quite some airlines, and what happens then is, if we remove the waitlist, so we send an email, we send a reminder. If the waitlist is removed by ACNL, we send you an email informing you that it's removed. If you place it back on the waitlist, you have the lower priority, so you will be treated as post-SAL. That means that all priorities are gone, you lost all priority, and you will be included to the requests which came in after the initial submission deadline. That's a shame, because that means that you lose your right to get a slot as soon as we have a slot pool. Then the historic baseline date. Most important part is, if you have a slot, make sure that it's allocated in a series. What we see often is that we have 4 slots at a certain day. If it's not a series of at least 5, there will be no HBD reference, so you will lose that part of slots. Okay. Supporting documentations by ACNL. What we try to do is we try to provide the airlines with as much information as possible. But the most important part is the working procedure that we publish for each season. The working procedure includes all relevant information which need to be known by an airline. So if there's a change in process, if there's a different rule which is applicant to that season, it's included in the document. So I want to point out to make sure that you read each season the working procedure, because it really includes all relevant information. Furthermore, we have policy rules. So if there's a new policy within slot coordination, for example, slot mobility, force majeure, it will be published on the website, and we also provide a news feed which says there is new documentation. Please read it carefully. For that, we have it's possible to subscribe to the newsletter. So that means if there's any document new or any new information which is relevant, you will get a news feed in your email saying, hey, new information, you have to read it. So I would like to suggest, if you're not subscribed yet, to do so in order to have all relevant information.
Thank you, Khadija. So, as Khadija mentioned, my name is Alain Lenoir, slot coordination monitoring with ACNL, joining ACNL 4 years ago. Is to monitor the operations of all Dutch coordinated airports, and of course Amsterdam is one of that. So Amsterdam, Eindhoven and Rotterdam. Slot monitoring, basically it's an analysis carried out by me to measure the operational performance of an airline compared with the slots allocated to them. We regularly compare the allocated slots to the actual operations. So ACNL will receive the actual performed flight information data from the airport, and on a weekly basis ACNL analyzes it, and then when discrepancies are monitored, all airlines will be informed about discrepancies found. Most likely you will recognize my name and recognize the messages. Most of them are no recs and no ops. So no rec is an operated flight without a holding slot for that particular flight, and a no ops holding a slot for which ACNL did not receive the actual flight data from the airport. These are the main monitoring items performed by ACNL. And the top one, the unplanned night movements, are actually the operated flights with a runway time between 11 in the evening and 7 in the morning, local times, without holding a night slot. So it can be either a flight holding a day slot operated during the night, or operating a night movement without holding a slot at all. Regarding the no-ops and the no-recs, you will receive the discrepancy report from ACNL. Regarding the unplanned night movements, ASNL is obliged to inform the Dutch CAA, so the Human Environment in... I don't know the English name, so it's the ILT. And then the airlines will get the reports from the Dutch CAA. ASNL and ILT have a weekly meeting to discuss all discrepancies, so including the unplanned night movements as well, and the NOPs and the NORECs. Besides the main course monitoring performed by ASNL, there are some other types, and as of IATA Winter 21, ASNL started to inform airlines in case the date of the scheduled flight information system did not match the allocated slots. So, most of the time they are delayed flights from, let's say, day 1 to day 2 after the night regime, and the information of the airport information system still remains a scheduled flight on day 1, which do not match the allocated slot for day 2. So in case the slot management was performed, still we have a discrepancy, so this should be the same. Oh. Yeah. ASNL and the Dutch CAA jointly published a slot enforcement code last July 21. And it is to establish and harmonize, to combine and define the process and role of the different relevant parties. So I'm not sure if you know the document, if you have read it, but that's basically a sort of Bible of the Dutch slot monitoring and enforcement for all Dutch airports. So it basically describes our roles for ASNL and ILT, and then different time of possible enforcement actions after monitored discrepancies. As you can show, is there a pointer over here? I don't know. Yeah. So in chapter 4 it states 9 different kinds of monitoring. So it's crawling, it's more like requesting slots on a different, how do you say it? So requesting slots which you intend to operate in a different way. So requesting with a higher priority and you actually have a lower priority. So one example. So over-requesting of slots. So airlines should only request slots which they do intend to operate. Late handback, late retiming. Actually they are still in development, and it's also stated in the slot enforcement code, and these will be implemented as soon as practicable. A different way of operations, so it can be holding a passenger slot and operate as a cargo, or vice versa. No rec, as mentioned, unplanned night movements, different time of operations, and no ops. Actually, as of IATA Winter 21, the ASNL also started to analyze the different time of operation, and basically we now started to analyze it based on the 60-minute difference of the allocated slots. So it might happen that you will be contacted by ASNL and to request explanation of discrepancies. And of course it will not be based on each single flight, but more in a series and so on.
Question on enforcement of late handback.
Yeah.
How does that work?
At this moment, that's not in place yet. So at this moment, in the Netherlands, it does not work yet.
But is the late handback, is that during the season or before the season starts?
Yeah, actually the definition of late handback is not determined yet. There is a discussion together with the Slot Performance Committee, with ASNL, and there's a request to the SPC to give an advice on the definition on late handback and how to monitor and enforce it. So it is in process.
Is that not defined somewhere in IATA?
not other than stated late handback.
It's anything after the HBD, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not defined yet in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Late retiming is a bit strange because retiming is usually always the last minute because it's either an AOG or there is handling restraints or those kind of things. So retiming is I think by definition late.
It's what definition you give about the term late retiming. So I can give you my opinion at this moment, but all four, so 4.1 until 4.4 is actually a part of the request to the slot performance committee to inform ASNL or to advise ASNL on how to implement these monitoring and enforcement categories.
But also, I think it's good to view the policy day of operations, which says in case of an operational reason, it is not required on the day of operations. It's not required to change the slot unless it's a night.
Yeah, it's one of the following slides, I think.
Can I just ask one question about the slot performance committee? Who is that made up of? Is there any cargo airlines represented at that committee?
Yeah, actually we had a meeting yesterday it was, eh? And there's a new member representing the cargo airlines, and I don't know, is Kees-Jan. Okay, thank you, Kees-Jan.
Meeting for yesterday for the first time.
Yeah.
Eye openers.
Left or right?
So maybe this is a good platform for Kees-Jan to inform this community as well. So. As Khadija mentioned, the working procedure is published on the website, and also I would like to point out the policy rule, the Day of Ops policy rule, and it can be found on ASNL's website. I'm not sure if the link which I provided in this presentation is in this presentation, so if it will be distributed, we have to check it before, and then you have a direct link to the documents. It's easy. On the Day of Ops policy, it basically states and explains to you what is expected in case of changes on the day of operation or changes to the next day of operation. So basically, in case of operational changes on the day of operation, you should not do anything about the allocated slots. If you change an allocated slot, also the schedule in the flight information system should be changed. So always the schedule should match the allocated slot. If not, it might occur that you will be contacted by ASNL to request an explanation. It can be found on the website. Then there's another document I would like to point out is the policy rule for force majeure. For ASNL, that's based for the use it or lose it rule. So basically the 80-20, which was 50-50 last year, and now 64-36 for the upcoming season. Basically there's a very limited list of circumstances which can be a reason for force majeure. In case there's a reason, of course slot management should be performed by the airline, and in case of a cancellation by the airline, you will not be notified by the coordinator to inform ASNL about the possibility to request force majeure. In case on the weekly basis you will be informed about the no-ops, there's also no opportunity by the airline to inform ASNL, okay, we had a reason, for instance, heavy weather on the airport, lightning, thunderstorms, whatever. So handling was not possible, we had to delay the flight by 24 hours. Then ASNL can provide force majeure for the use it or lose it rule, and then it will not be counted against the 80-20 6436, thank you. Still then, in case the no-ops was sent to you, the Dutch CAA asked ASNL to inform about all discrepancies. So still the no-ops will be forwarded to the inspectorate, since holding a slot and not operating it, it basically blocks capacity for other airlines. So it can still be enforced by the Dutch CAA. That information, of course, can be found on the website of the Dutch CAA.
I would like to add one more thing. After HPD, if you make any change or cancellation to a series, which counts against the 6436 in this season, getting close to the 64, you will get a warning from ACNL saying, hey, you're getting close to the 64. Be aware that if you drop below 64%, you will lose your historic right. If you drop below the 64, you will get a note saying you dropped below the 64%. So that's also a notification for airlines to be alert on what happens with a series. So that's always sent out.